Welcome to the Suicide Prevention Show here on 1360 WLBK, a show that tries to shed a little light on the darkness of suicide. And, of course, especially during the holidays, that darkness can be very dark. With us, as always, from the great state of Michigan, Tamara Sutton. You can learn more about Tamara at tamarasutton.com. Tamara, how you doing, my dear?
I'm very happy to be here.
A pleasure to hear from you. And, of course, Citizen Mike here with us as well, too, as we talk. We're recording this show on the verge of the holidays, too. And we know, unfortunately, we've learned that that's a time when a lot of people get very depressed, and that's what we're going to talk about today.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, the holiday season typically is a time where families get together, and so when we have experienced a loss, oftentimes that loss can be accentuated. And what we want to be able to talk about today are ways to help you get through your holiday season in good cheer.
And Tamara, having read your book, I know the holidays were especially tough when you lost your son to Demetrius, and you told a couple of stories in the book, too. I wonder if you could tell us about how your family coped with the loss of Demetrius and how you kind of turned that around, if you would, during that holiday season.
You know, given that this is such a tender time, and many, many times, I think that when you've had a loss in your life, the holidays particularly sometimes sneak up on us, and we're not anticipating ahead. So what I try to do is, actually from about Halloween time, I'm beginning to think in terms of take self-care, and expressions of talking about Demetrius and reminding my family, you know, the holidays are coming up. What can we do to bring Demetrius into our day? What can we do at this time of year to take better care of ourselves and to feel connected as a family, or to connect with people that maybe we've been busy during the year and need to make other kinds of connections, and to create remembrances as well. You know, and maybe it's difficult to speak about our lost loved ones and those that have died. And this is a way, and really a very special time, when we can make a special effort to think about them and our feelings. And so, some of those things that we do as a family, one of them, I've spoken about this before, is we have a special candle that is Dimitri's, and I light that on whether it's his anniversary of his death or his birthday, certainly around Thanksgiving and Christmas time. I will light this candle. It brings him into the room. The other thing that I really have done since the first Christmas without him is when my youngest daughter was 9 years old at the time, and she went to hang our stockings on the hearth and didn't even hesitate to pull Dimitri's out and to hang it too. And then there was a kind of a moment of sadness around that, of, recognition that, oh gosh, we're going to do this without him. So I opened the floor and just said, you know what, everybody, let's use this stocking to hold those thoughts or memories or experiences that we've had, or a poetry or a picture or something that comes from your heart, an expression of yours about him or for him. And let's fill his stocking each year with those kinds of things. And that's what we've done. And it's actually, I pulled it out this year. It's getting pretty heavy.
I love it, too. And again, so don't try to pretend like nothing happened or this person is not there, so let's not even discuss this person. Acknowledge them. And I remember from your book, Tamara, I believe Demetrius had a leather coat that you would actually put on the chair there, too.
We did. We haven't had a need to do that in the last couple of years, but it certainly carried us. In those first several years, we did. He has, it's his signature jacket, and I would just put it over the back of a chair, at first at the table, and then as time went on, it was kind of in the room around the holidays. I just put it over the back of a chair in the room, and so it's changed over time given what our need is, and that's what I'm wanting to convey here, is that I want for you to think about what you need and how you want to express, how you want to bring this person that you love so much into the room. One of the things that I did last Christmas was we have a home on Beaver Island, and it's a very, very special place for us. And I made beachscapes for each of my children with shells and stones and sand from the beach on the island. And I added a little bit of Dimitri's ashes to the sand because that's where his ashes are on Beaver Island. And they were so touched by that. One year I got some multiple frame picture frames, and I put pictures of him with each individual. So for my youngest, it was Demetrius with her. For my son, it was Demetrius with him, and for each of the kids. And that was so special to them. And so every year I try to just think of something that will bring him into their lives again, into our into the room, and make him very much a part of our holiday, and he is.
You know, that's really fascinating to hear, because it contradicts what I typically hear when people are talking about loss and the loss of loved ones, because the typical message I hear from folks is just get over it.
Right, and don't trigger any memories and things
don't
of that
talk about it.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, grandma's still sensitive about this and that sort of thing. But you know, we're getting that message that you're talking about, Tamara. We're looking at one of the news letters from survivors of suicide, and that's one of the things it says in terms of coping with the holidays. And this is whether it's a suicide or somebody else who has died and is important in your life, is to include the deceased in your conversations with your family and friends.
Right. Well, you know what? My big thing is the way to get through grief, the only way to get through grief is to go through it, and to think it, and to feel it, and to ask yourself questions, and to gather information and find your resources, and to really lean into it and make it a part of your story. It already is. It's already filling your heart. It's already in your thoughts all the time.
Yeah, so it's important to be able to have that conversation about the grief instead of holding it in by yourself, where it then becomes this pressure cooker that causes stress and causes you to perform in ways that you don't want to perform, and that actually accentuates the loss and the sadness rather than allowing yourself to go through it and process it.
Absolutely. It's influencing you anyway. So if your family members potentially can't handle the thought of they don't want to deal with it or they don't want to think about it, that's okay. I light the candle. And what that does is, whether they want to recognize it or not, that's an open door to talk about him.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so when you're doing that in your space, then that's honoring his presence and his memory in that space. And everyone who comes into that space with you actually sees it and gets that message, whether they believe it or think it or not.
And they don't have to talk about him if they don't want to. Everyone knows that in our family. It's always up to you. But guess what? They always do talk about him. In fact, they relax into and very much enjoy the relief of talking with others who remember him, because most of us, now it's for Demetrius, he's been gone for 12 years now. It'll be 12 years in April. And that's a long time. I don't know very many people anymore outside of my family who knew him. So another thing that I do for myself personally, I have lunch with a very dear friend of mine who knows him, or knew Demetrius, and is happy to also relieved to talk about him. And so that's what we do. We go to lunch, we talk about lots of things, but we also talk about memories of Demetrius, and it is such a wonderful moment for me in time.
And that's also another really important point, because it's something that we've learned on this journey. Oftentimes we have the perspective not to talk about it, whether we're concerned someone is feeling like they're going to complete suicide, or whether it's the loss of a loved one or anything else like that. We tell ourselves, don't talk to that person about it. And what we find actually is that it's really helpful to talk about it. That people actually are relieved to have the opportunity to talk about this portion of their life that is so painful and that they're typically carrying on their own.
And one of the best things you can do too is to be that person that listens when someone is telling their story.
And again, I want to mention that the bringing the sheet by was our other partner, Chuck Seabrass, not being able to be with us here, but Chuck brought by
we miss him terribly.
We do indeed. And of course, talking about the holidays, and I know one of the things the survivor of suicides do is they beat themselves up repeatedly, and they just continue to punish themselves. And one of the suggestions here in the list that Chuck dropped off is buying yourself a gift. Take care of yourself. And take a moment to do something nice for yourself. And I know that's very difficult. Like Tamara, I can't even imagine those first couple of years after you lost Demetrius, you doing anything for yourself at that time. But when were you able to, if you would, forgive yourself and treat yourself on occasion?
Oh my gosh, because it felt so good when I did do something for me. Now remember, I had very small children then too, but I would take the time and sometimes just to take a bubble bath with candles in the room, or to exercise when maybe I wouldn't have had the time or the energy to go for a long, long walk, and that's something I would make time to do. I'd go to a special place. For the first few years, we went to Beaver Island for Christmas and spent time there because that's where his ashes are. That was his favorite place in the world, and so I feel very, very close to him.
And that's, I love that, because another one of the suggestions is consider changing the focus of your holiday celebration. Break up some old traditions. If those old traditions are going to trigger memories and trigger sadness, as you say, Tamara, kind of tweak things and change them up a little bit.
Yep, and make them your own. You are not the same person you were before, and so why expect the same things from yourself?
Oh, very good. And Mike, one of the things you just mentioned on too is expressing honest feelings. Be honest with your family and friends about what you want from the holidays. Expectations should be only with each family member be able to handle comfortably, because we know people have such high expectations for the holidays. It's going to be a hallmark moment when we all get together, and seldom does it work out that way.
Yeah, that's very, very true. And then the other thing on this list that we're talking about has to do with giving to other people. So it's saying give flowers or plants to your church or organization in memory of your loved one. But then the other thing it says here, give flowers to someone that is a shut-in and needs recognition, especially at this time of the year.
That is great.
Because we're experiencing that loss with our loved one, and one of the ways that we can memorialize that and speak of the love that we have for that person is actually reaching out and giving to somebody else.
I love that so much. That is really wonderful, because that person, too, is feeling isolated, disconnected, or maybe he has had losses of their own, and what a wonderful gesture to connect with them.
And, time and time again on this show, that's one of the things that we hear from people who are survivors of suicide and people who are in the recovery process, is that they benefit from somebody else reaching out to them, talking to them, conversing with them, and just being connected with them instead of having to be isolated and shut off from other people.
Very good. That's a great point, too. We have to take a break. We're going to come back. We want to go through some lists of some stress relief. And to me, it's always so ironic when we get to the holidays and people get all stressed out about buying gifts and having parties. And it goes against the whole idea of what it's supposed to be about. Now, Tamara, do you still allow yourself to get stressed around the holidays?
Oh, no, not at all. Okay. I don't allow it.
All right, very good. We'll talk about that some more. Again, reminding you, you can always go to our website, 1360WLBK.com. You'll see something that looks like a stop sign. You'll click on that stop sign, and magically, what will happen, Mike?
You'll get another page where you'll be able to download this show and other shows that we have archived online for you, as well as send us an email. Tell us what you think about the show. Tell us how we can help promote suicide prevention in your community. And the other thing I thought of just the other day, so if you're just driving through our area and you've never heard a show like this, and you would like a show like this in your area, click on that email, tell us where you live, and we'll see what we can do to help make that happen.
You're listening to the holiday edition of the Suicide Prevention Show, and we'll be back right after this. All right, so should we just continue here now?
Start with that question so I can honestly answer it.
Okay, well, yeah, I was being a little facetious there about Tamara getting stressed at the holidays.
Yeah, but we can get back to that, though, because I think that's really
important. That'll segue right into the stress relievers that's on this list.
The bottom half of the
number 2 there, yeah. Okay, so here we go. We'll just come back here in 3, 2, 1. Welcome back to the Suicide Prevention Show here on 1360 WLBK, the holiday edition of the Suicide Prevention Show, because sadly, many lives are lost during the holidays. Right before we took a break, we were talking about stress around the holidays, but I have to go back to the fact that we talked about reaching out to somebody, a shut-in or somebody who's alone at the holidays. What a wonderful way to fill that void in your own heart, to go and share with somebody who's feeling lonely and depressed.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so it's in some sense, it's like acknowledging your own feeling and your own loss, and not just for yourself, but for someone else, and then being able to take what you need and giving to yourself and also to give to someone else. It's a fabulous way of keeping the memory of our loved ones in our lives.
And Tamara, we were joking before the break about allowing yourself to be stressed, because we always have to remember that we're in charge of our own emotions, and if we decide to get extremely stressed over something, it's self-induced, if you would, too. And Tamara, you were joking that you don't, but do you still get a little stressed around the holidays?
I was absolutely joking. It's a very stressful time. It is, but one of the reasons that it's so stressful, I think, is because we accept the pressures that are put upon us by expectations of others and traditions and all of that. But one of the best Thanksgivings I ever had was when I decided to not have Thanksgiving in the traditional, at my mother and father's house and all of the formality around that. We decided to just stay home and did a very simple dinner. We kicked our feet up on the table, after dinner and read stories to each other and, little antidotes, and we just took time by ourselves and made it our own day, and it was really, really wonderful. So that's, I guess, the big message from me about the stress of the holidays is take the stress off. I had actually written maybe 5 Christmas cards the first year after Demetrius died. I could not do any more than that. And I tried to and recognized that this was an impossibility. I could not gather my thoughts and focus to make this happen. The next year, I did 3 Christmas cards. It got worse in somebody else's eyes, but to me, I was recognizing, okay, I still am not ready for that. I'll make a phone call instead, or I'll do it after after the year begins and drop them a note then. But I took the pressure off of myself once I saw that I didn't have that kind of focus and just really couldn't make it happen. So listen to yourself, pay attention, and give yourself a break. Go have lunch with a friend, pace yourself, say no to some social engagements, and potentially, next year.
Well, there you go. That's one of the suggestions is to well, for you're dead on with both, because one is send Christmas cards to only half your list this year, give yourself a break, and the other one is establish a serene place of your own, even if it's just a comfortable chair or a quiet corner. Take a few minutes each day to sit and relax. And I know, Tamara, you said yours is the bubble bath. You go up there, you have the nice bubble bath, the candles going, and you're just calm and serene. And
light a fire and a cup of tea, and I read through the notes in Dimitri's stocking and just relish the moment. I'll sit and read a book for a bit, or just be quiet and have a thought that I can finish, to the end. Is a miracle for most of us.
To me, part of the thing that's fascinating about this is that the thing that gets us stressed is that we keep focusing on the traditional events, the parties, the dinners, so on and so forth. I got all of these obligations, rather than focusing on the tradition of attending to those that we love and care for, and that we are in that moment with them, talking with them, and interacting with them, and that it is that relationship that is so much more valuable and that will continue to live on so much more than any of the events or gifts or things that we do.
Oh, what a wonderful point, Mike.
That is, Mike. That's a great point.
That's wonderful. I have to tell you what we're doing this year. In light of all of this, all of my kids said, Mom, we have no money, and we're so stressed out. They're all in school and had exams and all of that stuff. And I said, you know what? We're changing up again this year. Get some small gift that's meaningful, it's small, for every person, and then write something to them, what they mean to you.
There you go.
A memory, a thought, a poem, whatever, but share with, each of us what we mean to you. And that way we keep them. We'll have a handful of them, and nothing feels better than that, and how connective.
You know, I haven't heard of that suggestion before, but I really think it's great. I know this pastor who says don't send flowers, at the funeral. Give it to them or tell them while they're alive. And I think about that. I reflect on that. Of all the gifts that I can receive, what is going to be most meaningful to me than to hear what somebody else really thinks about me, particularly if they appreciate me.
Right. Well, in the moment it takes to read that letter and you can save that letter, as opposed to, here's the cheese and sausage tray that I got you, and, the effort is appreciated, but it doesn't say near as much as a simple letter, a simple note. It would
and you have it forever.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the other thing with that, though, too, even as you say that, because I get stressed over trying to write, is that it doesn't have to be long.
No.
It could be a sentence or two. The key piece is that it's meaningful to you about that person. So, in fact, wouldn't that be great? In fact, nobody does gifts this year. What you got to do is go out, get a Post-it note, and you just write a message on a Post-it note. You can't go any bigger than a Post-it note. Do a Post-it note and give it to the people that you love and care for.
And I have to tell you a story for my wedding. Your lovely wife, Angela, married myself and my lovely wife, Becky, and Mike was my best man. And we sent out all the thank you notes, but we told ourselves we wanted Angela's and Mike's to be perfect and to be just so and to be special. And we kept putting it off because we built up this high expectation that this note has to be the be-all, end-all note. And when it came down to write it, I just simple words could not convey my feelings, so I simply just wrote a short message to you and still hopefully summarize my feelings there. But it doesn't have to be, as you say, the perfect letter that's going to hit all the right buttons. It's just sit down and
it was fabulous to receive it. Though I got it around Thanksgiving. I saw these Christmas ornaments, and I'm wondering, is this? I got to get my Christmas cards out. But yeah, and it was so nice to be able to receive that. And here's the other thing, though. I think about that. The people that are closest to us frequently see all the things that we're doing. And, part of what we say is, hey, don't worry about it. Don't stress yourself on it. You don't owe me. You don't have to do this, that, and the other. And so I think it can be helpful for us to kind of shift the way we think and just in a moment, let that person know, hey, I really appreciate this time I spent with you today. You can just say that, and you can write it on a Post-it note rather than having to go through all the stuff it takes to. Yeah, I know some people don't believe it goes through a lot of stuff to take to buy a card and write it, put a stamp on it, mail it. Just tell them in a moment's notice on a Post-it.
Yeah.
I like that. And one of the things here is schedule more fun, too, because, again, I think a lot of people feel like that, we're not honoring the person properly if we're having fun. And we should be serious and mournful the entire time. And Tamara, if we can tell us about your family, how you managed to work in fun while you're still respecting the memory of Demetrius.
Oh, my gosh. That is such a wonderful thing to bring up, because when you lose someone, you can't imagine. I could not imagine that I would ever see my children laughing and smiling ever again in life. But you know what? Within a few days, even, they were joking with each other again, and we were seeing light moments and joining those light moments and making them part of us and getting that, oh, look at us. Life goes on. We are still here. And yes, he's gone, and we're so sad about that, but it doesn't mean that we are betraying him by being happy.
Tamara, I can't believe that you don't have the cheat sheet in front of you as we do, because number 3 says, find the humor in it.
Really?
Yes, it does. Most every disaster situation has something funny about it if you look for it. Yeah. Laughter releases tension. And, we think in terms of tension, but at the same time, laughter also releases some neurotransmitters in our brain that help us to feel good and that actually improve our performance. There's some research around that in terms of, so if you want to pass a test, one of the things to do is, yes, you need to study, watch a funny movie, and then take the test. And people that do that, the endorphins that are released, they're actually able to perform better because of what laughter and humor and joy does in our lives.
Very good. Wow.
Yeah,
I tell you, we can't believe you don't have the list in front of you, Tamara.
Hey, I've lived it.
But a good one is, and you were talking about simplifying things, is unclutter your house and your life and to reduce the stress. Because I know we all have piles and stacks of things, and rather than even attempt to go into that pile, you just feel the stress, and you're like, well, I can't even begin, and you leave it, and then which often leads to another pile too. But as you unclutter your life, it relieves a lot of stress, doesn't it?
True, it does. simplifying
Absolutely.
in every way.
Here's another one that I like. It says, don't be afraid to say no. Don't be afraid to say no. You know, a lot of times, particularly with loved ones and friends, and we want to be able to do so much with them and for them, we tend to say yes, 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 and we're not paying attention to how much we've slept, how much we're eating, are we taking our medication, or what else are we doing?
Right.
And we let all those things go. And one of the ways that we can resolve that is by using that two-letter word, no. Or not now, or I'll get to it later. But
very
no.
powerful also.
Yes.
It's to feel in control of your life and yourself. To say no is something that I think re-energizes you and it can be a positive thing. It's usually no is a negative. No, in this case, it's a positive thing because what you're doing is thinking of what you need, which is so important. If you don't re-energize, if you don't take care of you, if you aren't on your list even of people to take care of, how will you possibly take care of anybody else?
That's a great point.
Really right on. Here's another one. It says reward yourself after stressful activities. I really want to highlight that at this particular time because part of what we're talking about, how do I deal with the stress of the holidays, but also how do I deal with the stress associated with the loss of a loved one? And one of the things that we really don't think about is rewarding ourselves, doing things that are pleasurable, that are helpful for us, that are celebrative. And if we can find the time to do that, make the time to do that, to reward yourself for after doing stressful activities, and that too can help keep you motivated, keep you going, and help you accomplish the things that you want to accomplish.
And speak up is another one too. Get it off your chest. It says here too. And I tell you, when we buried my uncle a few years back, he was a priest, just a wonderful man, and I wanted to say something at the graveside service, and I didn't. And I to this day I regret that I didn't do it, and I should have just said it. It was with my heart, and I had my entire family there, and I regret it to this day. So get it off your chest. If you're there with your family and you have an opportunity to speak about something, maybe you're angry about somebody that took their lives, and tell them why you're angry or why you're mad or why you're disappointed. But don't hold it in and don't bottle that up.
Well said. Telling our story is very important. TD, the other thing is you could write that and give it to your family, and
Wow.
It would be very, very touching.
You know what? I'm writing myself a note to do that because that's a wonderful idea.
You know, I like that. What that brings to mind is to understand it is never too late.
True.
Yeah.
It is
Now, while
never
that
too late.
opportunity passed, it is never too late to make that gesture, to communicate that message to someone else. Just find a way to do it. Put it on a Post-it note, and give it to them, and make that happen. Stay
One of the
connected.
most beautiful things that someone did for me after Demetrius died was, actually there are two friends of mine. Each of them would send me a card of remembering or just acknowledgement on Dimitri's birthday and on his anniversary. And wow, that always knocked my socks off that they would remember. And, it's such a touching moment because I absolutely remember. But everybody else doesn't have to remember. And I always feel a little isolated and like I'm going through it myself. And they always came through that way, and that was really, really touching for me. So the other thing, too, is to remember that the guy that's maybe, shaking his fist at you in the car and exempling road rage to you may be grieving. This might be just a very, very difficult time of year. This is not a happy time of year for everyone. And if we can remember to step into somebody else's shoes and just outside of ourselves for a moment and to think in terms of what must they be feeling, that helps too for them and for you.
All right, and one of the get it off his chest, I have to do that now because we're out of time, I'm afraid. But the very last one is I want to thank them, the people I work with here, Tamara and Citizen Mike, and of course Chuck Seabrass. Count your blessings, and I do. It's the reason we all came together. Is not the reason we wanted to come together, but I'm truly blessed to have you two in my life.
Oh, thank you
much.
so much. I have to acknowledge we just this past week passed our 3-year anniversary. I did a show with you, I believe it was December 3rd, TD.
Wow.
Of 2004.
Yep.
So I wanted to say thank you to you too for and to the WLBK for offering this kind of information and such a wonderful program. And not because I'm on it, but because we know the information is important and pertinent and helpful to those that listen.
Right on,
Thank you
sister.
both
Very
of
well
you.
said. Changing the world one conversation at a time, and that's what we're doing. And that's the holiday version of the Suicide Prevention Show for this week.